Welcome to the Systemize First webinar, the executive playbook for AI that delivers. I'm Jason Jancy. Before we dive in, picture this scenario. You're mid-quarter, your team has worked nights and weekends chasing delivery dates. These are seriously dedicated and talented people, some of the best in the industry. And yet, deadlines keep slipping, quality issues surface late in the process, and customers are starting to notice. And then you hear about a competitor. They've managed to embed AI into their delivery process and cut cycle times in half. They did it by integrating AI into their existing workflows. So while your team grinds through overtime, theirs moves twice as fast with less burnout. Now, if you're like most leaders, you start to get a little concerned. Your people are plenty smart, but it seems that the playing field has shifted. And here's the critical distinction. AI accelerates whatever system you feed it into. If you have a well-structured, repeatable system, AI amplifies it. But if you have a messy, inconsistent, or ad hoc operation, well, AI just makes that mess move faster. And that is going to be our focus today. This is about the discipline of systemization, building the operating rhythm, frameworks, and clarity that allow AI to deliver real business value. Without that foundation, AI becomes hype and noise. But with it, AI transforms into the amplifier that can double your impact without doubling your staff or your budget. Now let me set the frame for this session. We're exploring why systemization with AI has become an executive imperative, why it's no longer optional, and why the leaders who master it will pull ahead while others fall behind. The truth of the matter is that AI widens the gap between disciplined organizations and chaotic ones. We're going to look at frameworks that you can use to ensure your organization ends up on the winning side. Over the next 40 minutes or so, we'll ground this conversation in real examples, practical insights, and clear principles that you can take back to your leadership team. You'll leave understanding why systemization matters in the AI era, and with a way to diagnose where your organization is strong, where it's weak, and where AI could make the biggest impact. This is about moving past the hype and building organizations that can deliver faster, more reliably, and more sustainably in a world where AI has become the baseline. Now let's step back and look at the world most senior leaders actually inhabit. On paper, everything looks fine. They have smart people, they have experienced managers, their budgets are allocated, their tools are in place, progress seems to be happening. But when you dig deeper, the path to their outcomes is often a bit rocky. Deadlines are missed, deliverables arrive late, customer promises materialize weeks, sometimes even months behind schedule, and in every postmortem, the explanation is eerily similar. People worked hard, they gave it their best, and yet somehow the system didn't quite work. And this represents the first and perhaps most painful symptom. Deadlines slip despite extraordinary effort. And when the deadline passes, the team doesn't breathe a sigh of relief, they collapse, burnt out, and already behind on the next set of commitments. Leaders are left wondering, how can such talented people working this hard still fall short? The second symptom hides under the label of innovation. AI pilots pop up across the organization. They look impressive in demos. They generate excitement in leadership reviews, and you hear phrases like proof of concept and quick win bandied about. But then what? Those pilots never scale. They remain experiments in silos. For example, a chatbot helps one department answer queries but never integrates into customer service. Or a model automates part of a workflow but never gets adopted broadly. The surface looks shiny, but underneath, the business impact is negligible. And leadership starts asking, are we actually moving forward, or are we just playing with toys here? Now, the third symptom is perhaps the most frustrating. Teams work harder than ever, yet results don't improve. Productivity feels stagnant. Meetings are everywhere. Calendars are full, but progress just doesn't seem to accelerate. Every quarter brings new initiatives, but the velocity of change doesn't match the effort being poured in. Executives sit in boardrooms wondering, we've invested in the largest, latest tools, hired the top talent. Why aren't we getting more from what we already have? That frustration gnaws at leaders. Something structural is holding the organization back. And herein lies the real insight. Your teams are already putting in more effort than is sustainable. You've hired bright, capable people. The tools are everywhere, and AI has never been more accessible. And yet, the problem persists. The problem is the absence of reliable systems. Without systems, effort disperses, intelligence gets wasted, and technology becomes another layer of complexity rather than a force multiplier. Now, when I speak with executives, the conversation often circles back to the same exasperated question: why aren't we getting more from the talent and tech that we already have? And it's a fair question. You've recruited smart people, you've invested in cutting edge platforms, you've poured thousands, maybe even millions in some cases, into digital transformation, and yet progress feels incremental at best and elusive at worst. The harder you push, the less traction you seem to get. That kind of frustration erodes confidence across the organization. People start whispering that leadership doesn't really know what it's doing, and that narrative runs the risk of becoming self-fulfilling. Now let me paint the picture more clearly with an example. You greenlight an AI pilot because you want to stay ahead. The vendor runs the demo, your managers present early results, and for a moment, the excitement's real. You see the potential. But 3 months later, the pilot sits in neutral. No one can agree on the right metrics. Adoption is patchy. The pilot doesn't fit cleanly into existing workflows. And then the energy fizzles. The technology performed okay. The organization simply wasn't ready to absorb it. So what promised to be a game changer ends up quietly fading into the background. Or take another scenario. You've set bold targets: faster delivery, higher quality, better customer experience. The teams respond by doubling their effort. They schedule more meetings. They extend their hours. They chase down issues as they arise. But instead of progress, you see diminishing returns. Deadlines slip further and turnover rises. Customer satisfaction stagnates. Now, the instinct in moments like this is to call for more effort, rally the troops with stronger messages and tougher deadlines. But here's the hard truth: effort without systemization doesn't scale. It breaks people before it fixes anything. The common thread across these frustrations is the absence of reliable systems. Systems convert talent into repeatable performance. Systems allow technology to deliver consistent value instead of isolated wins. And systems keep organizations from being stuck in the cycle of heroics, where success depends on individuals pushing past their limits instead of processes working by design. And this is where AI becomes both promise and peril. AI doesn't magically create discipline. It doesn't fix what's broken. If anything, it makes weaknesses more visible by accelerating the pace at which those weaknesses show up. If you have fragmented processes, AI pushes the fragmentation faster. If you have unclear metrics, AI generates reports that confuse more than they clarify. And if you have weak governance, AI exposes you to risks at scale. Yet if you have strong systems with clarity, control, and capability, well, these make AI the amplifier you've been waiting for. It takes the discipline you've put in place and magnifies it. It allows your teams to deliver faster, adapt quicker, and achieve more without burning out. In short, systems are the prerequisite for making AI work. So as we move forward, hold on to one simple idea. The absence or the insufficiency of reliable systems is the problem. The opportunity, the one that will define winners and losers in this era, is to build those systems now, before your competitors outpace with the same tools you already have. Now let's clarify what systemization actually means. When we talk about systemization, we're talking about building repeatable, reliable workflows that deliver outcomes consistently. Systemization is the difference between hoping something will get done and knowing it will. It's the discipline of designing work so it doesn't depend on heroics, or memory, or chance. Instead, it runs on structures that are clear, repeatable, and visible to everyone involved. Think about the organizations you admire the most. They succeed because they've built systems that allow average days to produce extraordinary results. They rely on well-designed processes that make hitting targets the natural outcome. That's systemization, shifting from improvisation to intentional design, so the organization becomes a machine that can deliver without exhausting its people. Now, why does this matter so much in the age of AI? Well, it's because AI is an accelerator, not a fixer. AI without systems leads to random experiments. It produces flashy pilots that don't scale, and fragmented initiatives that never add up to real business impact. It creates the illusion of progress while the underlying reality remains unchanged. But AI plugged into well-structured systems delivers exponential results. It takes what's already reliable and scales it faster, better, and often cheaper than before. And this is the dividing line that we're seeing in the market. Some companies treat AI as a playground for experiments. They run dozens of pilots that look innovative but don't really go anywhere. Others integrate AI into their systems, into customer workflows, product development cycles, supply chain processes, or risk management frameworks. Those companies see measurable, sustainable results. The difference is the system into which the technology is deployed. Now here's a simple example. Imagine a company using AI in customer service. With no system in place, no clear rules for escalation, no process for handling exceptions, no feedback loops to learn from customer interactions, well, chaos ensues. It's just disarray. Customers bounce between bots and humans. Issues fall through the cracks, and satisfaction scores plummet. The AI becomes a liability in this situation. But take the same AI and plug it into a well-designed workflow. There, the AI handles routine inquiries quickly and accurately, and it frees up human agents to focus on complex, high-value interactions. Escalations are seamless because the system defines when and how they happen. Data from each interaction feeds back into the system, improving both the AI and the human process over time. What looked like a risky experiment transforms into a competitive advantage. The system is the difference. Now, if you've ever been in a meeting where AI was described as the game changer, and yet no one could explain how it would fit into day-to-day operations, well, you've probably seen what happens when systemization is missing. The enthusiasm is real, the intention is good, but the lack of structure means the initiative stalls. Without a defined workflow and a clear owner, and agreed upon measures and metrics of success, the pilot ends up as another line item in a quarterly report rather than a driver of transformation. Systemization flips the script. You start with the question, what's the outcome we need to achieve, and what system must exist to achieve it every single time? From there, AI becomes a lever that strengthens the system rather than a shiny object competing for attention. Leaders who adopt this mindset start asking, which of our critical systems could AI amplify right now? Now that's a fundamentally different lens, and it separates organizations just getting headlines from those actually getting results. And this brings us to the role of leadership. Systemization doesn't emerge organically. It has to be designed, championed, and enforced. Executives set the expectation that processes will not depend on heroics. They ensure outcomes are tied to systems rather than individuals, and that AI adoption strengthens the foundation instead of creating new points of failure. Without that leadership, even well-intentioned AI projects drift into disarray. So here's the insight. Systemization creates the conditions where innovation can actually scale. It's the scaffolding that allows AI to build something durable instead of something experimental. With reliable, repeatable workflows, AI multiplies value. But without those workflows, AI is like pouring water into a sieve. There's activity everywhere, but nothing holds. When we talk about systemization in the AI era, we're talking about the foundation on which everything else depends. It's the operating rhythm, the accountability, the clarity that transforms AI from hype into real business outcomes. For executives, the takeaway is simple. AI can only drive exponential results when you first build the systems it can amplify. Without them, you get random activity, but with them, then you unlock transformation. Now that we've defined what systemization means and why it matters, the question becomes, how do you, as an executive, actually approach it? This is where I want to introduce the executive level framework for systemizing with AI. It's a set of 3 simple pillars that give you clarity on what to prioritize, how to govern, and where to build capability. Think of these pillars as the foundation for everything else that we'll discuss, and it's the lens that you can use to evaluate every AI initiative moving forward. The first pillar is clarity. This is about defining clear outcomes and priorities. Without clarity, you get scattershot experiments, pilots that look exciting yet don't tie back to real business value, and teams pulling in various different directions. But with clarity, every initiative links directly to outcomes that matter, whether that's reducing cycle time, increasing throughput, improving customer satisfaction, or cutting costs. Executives must lead here because only leadership can set and enforce priorities across the organization. The second pillar is control. Control is about establishing guardrails, governance, human oversight. AI can do a lot, but it can also expose you to risks, legal, reputational, ethical, if it isn't guided carefully. Control means ensuring that every AI deployment is safe, it's compliant, and it's aligned with your values. It means you decide when and how humans stay in the loop, and you ensure that decision rights are crystal clear. Without control, you invite disorder at scale. But with control, you create confidence that AI is an asset. The third pillar is capability. Capability is about equipping your people and your systems to work alongside AI in a structured, sustainable way. This means training teams to embed AI tools into workflows. It means redesigning processes so AI augments human talent. It means building the muscle to scale what works instead of leaving pilots stranded in silos. Capability is the difference between AI as a series of disconnected experiments and AI as a driver of enterprise-wide transformation. So here's the big picture: clarity, control, and capability. Three pillars, all interdependent. You can't have one without the others. Clarity without control leads to risk. Control without capability leads to stagnation. And capability without clarity leads to wasted effort. When all three are in place, AI amplifies your systems in powerful and measurable ways. This is the framework that executives need to lead with confidence in the AI era. Now let's bring all of this down from the conceptual level to something more tangible. One of the clearest places we can see the difference between disarray and transformation with AI is in customer service. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but let's dig into it in a little more depth. This is a function that every executive understands. It's measurable, it touches customers directly, and it's often where AI pilots start, which makes it the perfect case in point. Now imagine a company that rushes to deploy AI into customer service without systemization. They buy a chatbot, they roll it out quickly, thinking it will cut costs and reduce workload on their call center. And for the first week, things do look promising. Customers get faster responses, agents are freed up from at least some of their routine questions, but then the cracks start to show. The bot gives inconsistent answers. It can't handle nuanced requests. There's no clear system for escalation, so customers get stuck in loops, bouncing from AI to AI without ever reaching a human. Frustration mounts, and instead of reducing costs, the company sees churn rise, NPS scores drop, and agents are eventually overwhelmed by angry escalations. Now, the tool itself wasn't really the issue. The system was broken. Now, if you flip the script, imagine another company that decides to take a systemization first approach. Their leadership team starts with clarity. The outcome they want is to cut average response times in half while improving customer satisfaction. They're solving a defined problem. Then they put control in place. Every AI interaction is governed by clear escalation rules. The AI handles predefined scenarios, and the moment it encounters something uncertain, it hands off to a human agent with full context of the conversation. They've thought about privacy, about compliance, about reputational risk before the rollout. And finally, they build capability. Their agents are trained in how to redesign their workflows around AI. The system is structured so the AI handles repetitive Tier 1 inquiries, password resets, order status checks, basic FAQs, while humans handle complex Tier 2 and Tier 3 issues. The AI even feeds data back into the knowledge base, so the system learns and improves over time. And what happens? Well, within months, the numbers speak for themselves. Average response times drop dramatically. Customer satisfaction rises. Agents report feeling less burned out because they're spending their time on meaningful, complex work, rather than endless password resets. Leadership has a clear story to tell. AI improved the customer experience and freed human talent for higher value interactions. And the lesson here is simple but significant. AI reflects the system it lives in. With no system, it magnifies disorder. But with a well-designed system, it transforms performance. Customer service is just one example, yet the principle applies everywhere. Product development, risk management, supply chain, even finance. The question isn't what can AI do? It's what system will we build so AI delivers what we need? For executives, this case makes the stakes crystal clear. The companies that start with tools fall behind, but the companies that start with systems pull ahead. When you look across your own organization, customer service might not be the first place you deploy AI, but it may well be the first place you recognize the pattern. Clarity, control, and capability. When you get those right, AI stops being an experiment and starts being a competitive advantage. Now let's be very clear about something right up front. Systemization is a top-down initiative. It doesn't emerge spontaneously from the bottom of the organization. It doesn't happen because teams suddenly decide to align, document their processes, or adopt guardrails. Systemization only takes root when executives decide it matters. And more than that, it only succeeds when executives lead it. And why? Well, because there are things in this journey that only executives can do. No one else in the organization has the authority or the vantage point or the accountability to make these decisions stick. Without your leadership, AI will remain stuck in the cycle of pilots and experiments. But with your leadership, it becomes a force that changes the trajectory of the entire business. The first of these responsibilities is to set the vision. Teams on the ground are too close to their day-to-day work to define why systemization matters or why it matters now. They're firefighting. They're solving immediate problems, juggling deadlines. Executives have to lift their eyes above the firefight and define the bigger picture. Why systemization? Well, because effort without systems doesn't scale. Well, why now? Because AI is widening the gap between organizations that are systemized and those that aren't. If you don't move, you'll be outpaced. That sense of urgency and direction must come from the top. The second responsibility is to choose priorities. One of the fastest ways to dilute the value of systemization is to try to do it everywhere at once. That leads to scattered pilots, fragmented energy, and frustration. Executives have the unique vantage point to see across the enterprise, to identify the few critical systems where improvement will drive disproportionate results. Is it customer service, where response times are driving churn? Is it product development, where cycle times are limiting growth? Is it risk management, where exposure could undermine investor confidence? Only executives can weigh these trade-offs and choose where to start. Those choices matter more than the tools you buy or the pilots you run. The third responsibility is to champion adoption. This is about culture and alignment. Systemization requires discipline, and discipline requires buy-in. Teams need to believe this isn't just another initiative that will fizzle out in 6 months. They need to see that leaders are serious, that you'll stay the course even when the novelty wears off. That means executives must communicate clearly, reinforce consistently, and model the behaviors they want to see. Culture is built in the everyday signals that leaders send. And here's the key insight. Implementation is the team's job, yet direction and accountability, those rest with leaders. Your teams will design the workflows and build the dashboards and operate the systems, but only you can set the vision, pick the priorities, and ensure adoption. Without that leadership, the effort fragments. With it, the effort unifies, and that difference is everything. Now, there's another piece of this that executives often underestimate. It's anchoring accountability. Teams will do the work, but if they sense that leadership isn't watching, then priorities tend to shift and momentum fades. Accountability means making sure everyone knows the systemization effort is non-negotiable and permanent. When executives tie outcomes to accountability, through reviews, through performance metrics, through board-level reporting, the entire organization understands this is real. People align their energy because they see it matters at the highest levels. The absence of this accountability is where many systemization efforts fail. Now let me share a cautionary story. A large company I follow made a big announcement about adopting AI across the enterprise. The CEO was excited, the board approved significant funding, and teams launched pilots all over the place. And yet, the executive team never set a vision, they never chose clear priorities, and they never reinforced accountability. And in less than a year, the pilots had fizzled out. Some were abandoned, others limped along without scaling, and the few that did show results never really connected back into broader business goals. And the board eventually asked, what do we have to show for all this investment? And the painful answer was, not much. The technology performed, but the executives didn't really lead. Now let me contrast that with organizations that get it right. In those companies, systemization with AI is treated as a leadership mandate. The CEO or division head sets the vision and communicates it relentlessly. The C-suite narrows the focus to a few high-impact priorities. Leaders at every level model the discipline of adoption, reinforcing that AI is here to augment systems. And because accountability is anchored at the top, progress doesn't stall when people get busy. It accelerates because everyone knows this is the way we work now. So here's the rallying cry: systemization with AI requires your ownership. You can delegate execution, you can delegate design, you can delegate operation, but you cannot delegate vision, priorities, or accountability. Those belong to you. And if you don't claim them, nobody else will. The difference between success and failure in this era is not about who has the best engineers or the flashiest tools. It's about which executives step up to lead systemization with conviction. Remember this: AI amplifies whatever system it touches. Your teams will build the workflows, your managers will implement the guardrails, but the tone, the direction, and the discipline, all of that begins with you. Implementation is their job, leadership is yours. And that's what makes the difference between another failed pilot and a transformation that changes the trajectory of your company. When it comes to systemizing with AI, you don't need a 300-page manual or a 12-phase methodology. What you really need is a streamlined, practical playbook. A handful of steps that you can remember to repeat and lead with confidence. That's what I want to give you here, the 5 steps to start. These steps distill what works across industries and organizations of all sizes. They're simple without being simplistic. Follow them and you'll avoid the traps that sink most AI efforts, but ignore them and you'll find yourself in the same cycle of pilots that never scale. So step 1, define the business problem. The first step is to define the problem. This might sound obvious, and yet it's where most AI initiatives go wrong. All too often, teams start with a tool. Let's try a chatbot, or let's test a forecasting model. That's tinkering. Instead, start by asking, what must improve in our business? Is it cost? Is it speed? Is it quality? Is it growth? Frame the problem in business terms, never technical terms. For example, our financial close process takes 15 days. It needs to come down to 5. Or our customer churn is at 12%, it must drop to 8. When you define the problem this way, you align AI with what executives, boards, and customers actually care about. The second step is to map your critical process. Once you know the problem, you have to see where it lives. Where in the workflow is the bottleneck? Is it in approvals, data entry, communication, handoffs? Mapping the process gives you a system-wide view so you don't just optimize one task in isolation. Without this, AI becomes a patch that might fix one pain point while leaving the bigger blockage untouched. With process mapping, you identify exactly where AI can amplify performance in a way that moves the needle on outcomes. Now, I spoke recently with a leader who thought their slow financial close was due to manual reconciliations. But after mapping the process, they discovered the real bottleneck was rework caused by inconsistent handoffs between regional offices. And that insight changed everything. Instead of buying a flashy tool to automate reconciliations, they redesigned the workflow and then layered AI into the specific choke point. The result was a smoother close end to end. Mapping processes before adding AI prevents wasted effort and it maximizes ROI. Now, by the time you've defined the business problem and mapped the process, you've already done something that most AI initiatives skip entirely. You've anchored the work in business reality. However, there's a third step that makes or breaks whether your effort translates into results. You set 1 or 2 measurable outcomes. This is where leadership discipline really shows. Without clear outcomes, AI pilots drift. They generate activity without accountability. They produce dashboards without business impact, and when the board asks, what's the ROI? Well, you're kind of left shrugging. That's exactly what happened in the marketing department of a company I know. They launched an AI tool to generate campaign copy. It produced plenty of text, but there were no KPIs, no baseline for quality, no targets for conversion or measures of customer engagement. And after a few months, the pilot was abandoned. The tool seemed to perform just fine, but no one could say whether the pilot had succeeded or not. Without outcomes, there's no story to tell. You also need to resist the temptation to overload this step. You don't need 10 metrics. In fact, you shouldn't have them. The more outcomes you set, the harder it becomes to focus and scale. Instead, pick 1 or 2 measures that directly tie to the business problem you defined. If your problem was slow financial close, your outcome might be reduced close time from 15 days to 5, like we said earlier. Or again, if your problem was customer churn, your outcome might be reduced churn from 12% to 8% in 6 months. The tighter and simpler the outcome, the easier it is for teams to design toward it, and the easier it is for you to report on it. There's another layer here. credibility. When you set outcomes, you create a contract with your board, with your stakeholders, with your teams. You're basically saying, this is how we'll know if AI is delivering value. That discipline forces sharper decisions. It keeps the teams from wandering into scope creep. And it gives you the confidence to shut down initiatives that don't move the needle, because the evidence is right there in the numbers. I'll tell you what happens when leaders do this well. Instead of AI pilots becoming side projects, they become mini business cases. Suddenly you have before and after data. You can show cost reductions, cycle time improvements, revenue lifts. That's when boards stop rolling their eyes at AI and start leaning in. And that's when you shift from experimentation to credibility. Now, once you've defined the business problem, mapped the process, and set clear outcomes, you're ready for step 4, which is to pilot it with a tight scope. This is where many executives get impatient. The temptation is to go big fast, to announce a sweeping AI rollout that covers multiple departments at one time. But here's the reality. Large-scale rollouts without proof are where budgets get burned and credibility is lost. The smarter path is to start small. So small, in fact, that you can prove or disprove value in 60 to 90 days. That's long enough to see meaningful results, yet short enough to maintain urgency and avoid drift. A well-designed pilot is a focused experiment with clear boundaries. The goal is to show that AI can deliver measurable business outcomes in a controlled environment. That means you limit the scope to a single process, a single team, or even a single geography. You don't try to fix everything at once. You focus on one choke point where success is undeniable and scalable. This is the discipline executives need to model. Pilots must have boundaries. They must have baselines, and they must have outcomes defined in advance. Without those, pilots become playgrounds. They're fun for teams, but useless to the business. With them, pilots become proof points, evidence that you can carry into the boardroom to justify scaling. Now here's a nuance that's worth paying attention to. A good pilot doesn't just prove that AI works, it proves that your system works. Remember, AI plugged into a broken system just accelerates the brokenness. A tightly scoped pilot lets you test the workflow, the governance, the training, and the adoption. It forces you to make sure clarity, control, and capability are in place before scaling. So step 4 is this: pilot with purpose. Keep it tight, keep it measurable, and keep it disciplined. Do that, and within 60 to 90 days, you'll know whether you have something that can scale or whether you've avoided a much larger mistake. And once you've proven value with a pilot, the natural instinct is to celebrate and then move on to the next shiny project. But the real opportunity, the one that changes the trajectory of your business, comes at step 5, scale with guardrails. Scaling is where most organizations stumble. They take a successful pilot and roll it out broadly, but they forget that what works in one corner of the business doesn't automatically work everywhere. Different teams, different geographies, different functions, they may have different workflows or data quality or risk profiles. Without guardrails, scaling turns your pilot into a liability. Guardrails are the conditions under which AI can safely and reliably scale. They include governance structures, who approves expansions, what metrics must be met before scaling, and what oversight stays in place. They include compliance checks and risk checks, ensuring legal, ethical, and reputational boundaries are respected. And they include cultural guardrails, making sure teams are trained, supported, and ready to adopt the new way of working. In short, scaling with guardrails means you only move forward when you can guarantee both performance and trust. So let's bring the playbook together. Step 1, define the business problem. Step 2, map the critical process. Step 3, set 1 to 2 measurable outcomes. Step 4, pilot with a tight scope. And step 5, scale with guardrails. It's simple, it's clear, it's powerful. Now what I want you to notice is that this playbook is not technical. It doesn't require you to understand algorithms or data science or machine learning. It requires you to lead. It requires you to define problems, set priorities, enforce discipline, and insist on accountability. That's why this is an executive playbook. Your teams will handle the details. Yet if you don't lead with these 5 steps, no amount of technical brilliance will produce enterprise-level results. The organizations that succeed in the AI era will be those that systemize first and scale carefully. The ones that fail will be those that treat AI as a toy, skip the steps, and rush to scale without guardrails. The difference is not luck, it's leadership. And with this 5-step playbook, you now have the framework to lead with confidence. Now, before we wrap up, I want to give you something practical, something you can carry back to your office tomorrow morning. It's a quick self-diagnostic. 3 simple questions that will tell you right away whether your organization is systemization ready. The first question is this: do you have the clarity on your top 3 processes that drive outcomes? I mean, a crisp, specific answer. If I stopped you in the hallway and asked, what are the 3 processes that most directly drive revenue, cost savings, or growth in your organization? Could you answer immediately? If the answer is no, that's a signal. Without clarity on the processes that matter the most, any AI initiative will be scattershot. The second question: do you know how success is measured today? Now this sounds simple, yet it's shocking how often the answer is unclear. Are cycle times being tracked? Are error rates being measured? Are customer satisfaction scores tied back to the workflows that create them? If you don't have baselines and agreed upon metrics, you're flying blind. And if you're flying blind, AI can't help you. It will only generate more noise. The third question: do you have a mechanism for piloting and scaling safely? In other words, when a new idea comes up, whether it's an AI tool or a process improvement, do you have a structured way to test it, prove value, and scale with guardrails? Or does it depend on who champions it, which department has budget, and whether people get tired before results appear? Organizations that lack a disciplined mechanism for piloting and scaling end up with endless experiments that never cross the finish line. Now here is the key insight. Most executives, when they walk through these 3 questions, discover gaps. Maybe they can name the top processes, but they realize success isn't being measured consistently. Or maybe they've got metrics, but they have no way to pilot and scale without chaos. Or maybe they're missing all 3. That's an opportunity. It means you've identified the exact leverage points where leadership attention can unlock massive gains. These are not technical questions, by the way. They're leadership questions. They cut straight to your role in shaping the systems that AI can amplify. If you're strong in all 3, you're ready to scale AI with confidence. If you have gaps, that's the place to start. Don't pour money into tools until you can answer these questions with conviction. So I'll leave you with this challenge. Take these 3 questions back to your leadership team. Ask them honestly, and don't be surprised if the answers create uncomfortable silence. That silence is the sound of opportunity. That's where systemization begins. Now, as we close this session, let's step back and connect the dots. We've looked at the hard truth about AI. On its own, it creates activity and noise. It creates experiments that look good in demos but stall in reality. What actually creates results, predictable, scalable, measurable results, is systemization. AI without systems accelerates disorder. AI with systems accelerates impact. And that's the distinction. That is the executive imperative. Now, today we mapped the problem landscape, we defined what systemization really means, and we walked through the executive level framework of clarity, control, and capability. We saw through examples like customer service how AI plugged into a broken process produces frustration, while AI embedded in a well-designed workflow produces transformation. We looked at the executive role, what only leaders can do: set the vision, choose the priorities, and champion adoption. We laid out the 5 steps to start. Define the business problem, map the process, set measurable outcomes, pilot with tight scope, and scale with guardrails. And we closed with a quick self-diagnostic to help you see where your own organization stands right now. So here is the reinforcement I want you to take away. Systemization with AI delivers predictable outcomes at scale. That's the dividing line between the organizations that will pull ahead in the next 5 years and the ones that will fall behind. And here's the call to action. Over the course of this session, we've only scratched the surface. If you want your organization to stop missing deadlines, to stop burning out talented people, and to stop throwing money at tools that don't scale, this is your moment. The next step is to have your leadership team take the frameworks we introduced here and apply them directly to your business. This will help you pick the right processes, design the right pilots, set the right guardrails, and build the systems that turn AI into measurable ROI. Now you can download the 3 pillars and the 5-step playbook in PDF form by clicking the links on this page. Now if you have any trouble accessing them, just send me an email or DM me on LinkedIn and I'll help you out. Also, if you'd like any other members of your leadership team to have exposure to this approach, you can either point them to this webinar, or we have another one designed specifically for leaders in charge of implementation. And that one goes into more depth in the areas of tooling and technique. It's also free, and if you'd like me to send you the link, just let me know and I'll get you set up. Lastly, if you found this useful, or at least thought-provoking, and want to go deeper, I'm happy to jump on a Zoom and talk through some ideas with you. No charge and no obligation. Just visit techleaderadvance.com/strategy session and schedule a call. It's time to start systemizing. That's the way to make AI the amplifier of the outcomes your business needs.